Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So, how are you doing? Good, bad, indifferent? Good. Any questions before we get into tonight's topic? And no, we're good? All right. And again, some of you have emailed about, oh, what about the due date, the tardy or the late turn-in date? As of this point right now, I'm not paying attention to any of that. We need to get our tasks in. That's the most important. Getting your tasks done and all of that you need for your licensure. You know, if you have your assessment, strength finder assessment, all of that stuff, keep going through it. Don't, you know, just stop because I said I'm not focusing on that. Please go through that. I know a good bit of you have done that. At our next Zoom, which is on July the 9th, we will discuss the Strength Finder assessment and about building a good team. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight because the videos that you guys watched talked a little bit about that. But right now, because of that soft deadline, to me, the important thing is getting all those tasks in. If you have them all in and you're done, then fantastic. Keep working and trugging along. If you want to take the week of the 4th off, then that is your choice. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the videos that you guys watched. Yes, they all were TED Talks. I like TED Talks. I actually subscribe, and it's free, so I don't pay for it, but I subscribe to a podcast through my podcast app on my phone, and it's TED Talks Daily. So I enjoy TED Talks, but I felt that these 3 were about leadership, but they had different topics, different perspectives. So I'm sure everybody remembers every word that the speakers said, right? Not really. The one you guys listened to in week 2 was what do all great leaders have in common? And the guy was British. He talked about you have to know yourself first. And that's kind of the focus of this semester is getting to know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, that sort of thing. You guys remember why he talked about you need to get to know yourself first? Oh, putting you on the spot.
Because it says in order to connect to people, you have to know yourself fully.
Oh, somebody took notes. Good job, Carol. He talked about their important parts to leadership, people, and some of that is climate. And in order to create a safe environment, you have to have an open climate. But as a leader, that also opens yourself up to some criticism. So have you ever filled out a survey on a leader that you work for or work with?
My principal chose 6 of us at the end of the year, and we had to evaluate her.
So I send one to my staff every year, and I send one for the assistant principals as well. It is not a fun day when you get the results. And part of that is just like through social media, and what we tell the teenage kids is that it's easy for people to hide behind a computer. It's easy for people to type a comment rather than to say it to your face. And the surveys that I send out are actually 100% anonymous. My staff didn't necessarily believe that. They wanted to see the results. I said, you're not going to see the results because those are more of a personnel matter, but they are 100% anonymous. And some of them really hurt. You know, some of them, at my previous school, I had somebody put on there that I became a principal at 33. And I had somebody put on there, I was too young to know to be an effective leader. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know that age has anything to do with it. Sometimes, you know, people who join the leadership realm late are great leaders. Sometimes people who join the leadership realm early are good leaders. I sort of feel like it's sort of like teachers. You are born to be a teacher, not necessarily you learn how to be a teacher. Just like Cam Newton was born with his athletic ability. He maybe had somebody hone his athletic, help him hone it, but he was born being athletic. Where me, I was not born being athletic. So I had somebody put on there that because I did not have children of my own, I could not be a good school leader. Well, there is a different perspective when you have children of your own, you know, and I recognize that as a school leader, so I have to channel that sometimes. If, like I said, I use my nephews, if these are my nephews, how would I feel? I once had somebody put on there, because I was born above the Mason-Dixon line, there's no way I could be a good administrator in the South. Well, I wanted to respond to whoever that person was, that if you look at the latitude of where I was born, it actually is below the latitude of the Mason-Dixon line, but I wasn't going to go into all of those technicalities. But, you know, people are rather ruthless, but it gives raw data. And I tell my assistant principals, look, you're going to focus on the negative things because that's what we do as humans. And in the speaker that was his was the new school leadership. He was the African-American gentleman that was real tall, kind of nice looking. Sorry, guys. He talked about you have to look at failures and not necessarily, we tend to focus on failures, which we shouldn't. And we see failures as wrong, and we need to look at the positives. So I always tell my assistant principals, yes, you've got to look at the negative, and the comments, you can always have excuses for those, but you have to be able to say that is their perception. I once had a survey that said she always has her phone in her hand, and I feel like I don't get her full attention. But then I had the next comment said she's always very responsive to the emails, that she's always responding no matter where she is. Well, it's a little bit of a back and forth. So I had to take the perception of both. I still needed to be responsive, yet I also still needed to, be able to say, hold on, let me finish this email, and then give them my full attention. Tracy?
I was going to say, it's funny that you mentioned that because my principal and I are a good bit difference in age. She's my little millennial, as I call her. But one of the things, the school I was at before, the principal, a lot of the things I would hear the teacher complain about is he always has his phone. Not fully listening to me. So that was one of the things when she and I talked when I first came and joined her at the middle school, because she always had that phone and she was on it. And I said, I don't know that you totally understand the perception that even though you're multitasking in your mind, you're not giving people your full attention.
Correct.
And so now I tell that story all the time. And when she's meeting with somebody one-on-one or a group, she will move her phone away, like purposefully. And so I said, now, if you have to answer things, that's fine. Just explain, like, I have to do this at this moment. But I think something she took because it was the perception of a lot of people where he, the former principal, wasn't giving us his attention. And so that's something she and I talked about because I never have my phone with me. And she'll say, I've been trying to get hold of you. And I'm like, well, my phone's on my desk because I was meeting with this person or that person. So it's interesting, that person, because that was something I took from my other school that really bothered people. So I shared that with her because she always had. But I see both points of it.
Right. So. I mean, people are going to have their two different perspectives. The way I have two, one work, one personal, but they have the number to both. And I always turn them to vibrate when I get to work. Now, my personal goes to my watch. I do not have my work go to my watch because I get 200 emails a day. I don't want to be notified every time I get those emails. But I tell the staff, look, I sometimes, if you text me, that's the fastest way to reach me, unless you want to call the office and have them hit me up on the walkie, which we wear earpieces. So, you know, I can be in a parent conference and have somebody tell me something on the walkie as long as I don't have to respond. But I also am very cognizant to put my phones aside. You know, today I met with a parent and I had all of my phones on the other side of the desk, and I said to the parent, look, my mom's about to board an airplane. I'm going to keep my phone with me just to see if there are delays, that sort of thing. And just, I found just having that explanation, you know, just finishing my second year at this school, I am the master multitasker. And that can come across great. But that also can come across as bad because, you know, I can easily listen and type an email and be able to respond. And the people who maybe haven't experienced that or aren't good at multitasking think that I'm not paying attention. And I have to check myself and say, just because I can do it doesn't mean that other people appreciate that. And so sometimes I'll have to say to them, hey, if you will just hold on a minute, let me finish this email. Or if we are experiencing some bad weather, like if tonight where our weather alarm is going off a lot, I have the weather alerts on my work phone. I will always say, I'm going to keep my work phone here just so I can monitor the weather alerts. It is being very aware. And I don't think, I mean, I know 16 years ago when I became an administrator, I didn't have to deal with that because I had a flip phone. I actually had the Nextel phone where you could, you know, walkie-talkie each other. So I think with growing technology, that is something that as leaders, we are going to have to be continually aware of. The other thing is it's really easy to email somebody and not go have face-to-face conversation. And so there are times that a teacher will email me something that they're not happy with, and I will just go and meet with them. Or I'll email them back and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's not go back and forth on email. Now, there's good reason to have email because you have that record. And we will talk about that when we meet the 2 Zoom sessions from now. But, you know, there needs to be that record. But, you know, he talked about open to criticism. One of our speakers talked about how you've got to look how other people view you. And you have to define how you're doing based on the view or the perception of other people. Wow, when I heard that, that was a lot for me to take in because some people view me as not being effective because I don't let them do what they want. But I have to, again, their perception is their reality. I have to take that into consideration. I have to be able to think about that and try to change their perception, their reality. So, but he talked about people having a vision, and he talked about driving without a destination means you will just get lost. I always say you can be a leader, but if you don't have any followers, you're not a leader, you're just somebody lost in the woods. So you've got to have that vision, and it needs to be shared. And having celebrations along the way. He mentioned test scores and things like that are not celebrations. Having those small celebrations along the way. And as I was going over my notes preparing for the Zoom tonight, I thought, you know what? We at my school need to do a better job of having celebrations along the way. You know, the first work day, we maybe need to go and make it optional about 2:30 in the afternoon and go bowling. Or at the end of the year, we had a staff kickball game. I was not able to participate because I had an angry parent in my office. But, you know, those to me are fun celebrations. Celebrations of we made it through another school year. Celebrations of, hey, we're here as a staff together. But there also needs to be celebrations in other ways. Think of ways, share ways that you think would be good celebrations that aren't tied to like test scores, graduation rates, school report card, things like that. Anybody know of any that maybe your school does that would be good celebrations?
Are you referencing like with students or just with staff members?
Staff, just staff. I mean, you can also do some with students. Mm-hmm. Because students need to be a part of your vision and your stakeholders need to be a part of your vision. But just thinking first with the staff, because you got to get the staff on board.
Well, at the end of the year, we did the last work day go out to eat. But honestly, when we got our results back for our teacher working conditions survey, that was something that my principal brought me and the CF in her office to talk about, because the last 2 times that they were done, her scores has went down in each category. And so morale is something that she was asking, what were our thoughts? What could she do at the beginning of the year? Because honestly, that's the only celebration we had all year was
Right.
the end of the year. We had the welcome back, I guess orientation, but as far as something like winter break getting ready to come around or anything, like we didn't do anything. So for my school, we only had one celebration, which was
Yeah. And that may be a part of the staff morale. A reason why staff morale was low. For those of you that are in North Carolina, the results for the teacher working conditions survey are out. So look at those. I would not change what you have in any of your tasks at all. You are at the end, but I think it would be good for you to look at just from a leader standpoint. I luckily looked at mine before my summative evaluation because the superintendent asked me some very specific questions, and I had it right there with me, thank goodness. One of the things that we do here, part of the school identity here is one steeped in huge, huge longstanding traditions. The school opened in '71, and to this day, we still continue traditions that were started in the early '70s when this school opened. So what we do at the beginning of the year during those opening work days is we do some sort of fun with the staff, and it's on campus, and we make it a little bit of a competition, but they're really not competing for much. It may be some candy, some, cup of school supplies, something that I can get cheap. But the first year I was here, we did a scavenger hunt where we randomly assigned them. So it wasn't their buddies. It wasn't like the PE department together. You need to separate all those athletic teachers. So that they could get to know staff members, put new staff members with people that have already been here. And they had some riddles that would not tell them the answer. And then they had to go take a selfie in front of what they thought was the answer. Give you, for example, James Worthy was the NBA great of the LA Lakers. James Worthy was a graduate of this school. And we have a jersey hanging in one of our hallways. And I forget exactly what the riddle said, but something about, him being in California or something. And they had to go take a group selfie in front of that jersey. And then they had to come back when they thought that they had made it along the way, or just for stops, check-ins, and show us the selfies. And if they had gone to that full extent, then at the very end, we did rolling chair races down the hall. Now, I will tell you, we broke a couple rolling chairs. So rolly chairs, like desk chairs, so be careful with that. But it was a great way to reiterate our traditions, to orient the new people to the school, and just really try to have that collaboration and feeling of a family, which is what's important to this school. So for this, and we did something sort of like that this past opening, and I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't a scavenger hunt. I don't remember if it was like a bingo or something like that. So we have a plan what we're gonna do this year. What we do know is that our prizes are going to be dollar scratch off for the North Carolina Educational Lottery. They did that at our administrative end of the year meeting. You would be amazed at how excited you are that you get to scratch off, like, I won $2. I didn't win anything. I got a scratch off and didn't win anything, but it was a lot of fun. And, you have your opinions as you may, but hey, it's an educational lottery. So hopefully you're not trying to encourage people to commit sin or to gamble, but to give to the education system in the state of North Carolina. So I do think my previous school, we established like a teacher of the month recognition, and it was by peers. 100% by peers, where before our monthly staff meeting, we would send out like a Google form where they could submit a nomination for somebody, and the winner was the person who had the most. We have at this school, we have a former parent that has established a $1,200 cash prize at the end of every year for the most inspirational teacher, and it's all student driven. So one day at the end of May, each student gets a slip, and we do it during one specific period each day, and the students get to nominate a teacher for the most inspirational teacher and why. And then those are collected and those are tabulated, and the person with the most responses, and of course we have to read them, so one of my assistant principals read 1,350 responses. They unveil a top 5, and then they award at our end of the year luncheon a teacher with a $1,200 check. Now, talk about some motivation. $1,200 is a lot of money, tax-free, all of that. And we also give out to everybody their slips from the students. And after that luncheon, people are like knocking each other over to get to the teacher's lounge to get their slips to read them from the students. So, it's important to have those celebrations along the way. I know I need to do a better job of just writing little notes saying, hey, thanks so much for working well with that parent. Because to me, those are celebrations. Thanks for inviting me to a wonderful poetry slam, or, just kind of giving that recognition where the people are doing it because they don't want to, they don't have to do it, it's because they want to do it, I think is very important. I do not allow jeans. And when we have a random jeans day because maybe the staff needs a pick-me-up, man, you would have thought I gave them all $1 million. Who knew free pair of jeans was that important? He also talked about passion and enthusiasm, and that you need to give people emotion, and if you don't, then you lack credibility. You ever worked with a leader that absolutely had no personality? It was like talking to a wet noodle. How'd that go? Not well. I mean, I've worked for people like that, and you're sort of like, are you excited? Do you like your job? Like, what's going on? Give me some facial gestures. I'm one of those leaders. I've got to check my face, because there are times if somebody's talking crazy, I'm going to give them the look like, are you serious? That's my crazy look. Are you really? You're coming to me with this right now? I have to check my face, and I may be thinking, are you serious? You're coming to me with this right now? So sometimes you have to be a little guarded if you are like me, where everything is on your face. But he also talked about strategic mental rehearsal and about how sports people do it. I can't tell you how many times I've had to have crucial conversations that I rehearse over and over what I'm going to say. Sometimes I write down and make sure that I get my points that I want to say across. So having that strategic mental rehearsal kind of helps. The guy that had great leadership starts with self-leadership, and he talked about the leadership problems, the TLT times people times power. And he talked about the headless chicken syndrome for too little time. That's TLT. Do you feel that way right now? Too little time? Yeah, welcome to administration. That's the way it's going to be for the rest of your time. But also about too little time times people, where the little things and little discussions, the little details matter, not necessarily the big glorious things. Sometimes we forget, oh, I probably should have told somebody that. And then the power, and he talked about the cookies, and about cookies that were provided for the kids, yet it was the people who oversaw the cookies that ate all the cookies. Talked about self-leadership, self-awareness, self-reflection, reframing, some of the same things that you talked about. Then the new school leadership, the African-American gentleman that mentioned he was really tall, made sure that his boss and none of his kids were there in the audience before he talked. His, I think, was one of the most interesting. He talked about, why do we look to the past to find good leaders? And he talked about a conversation about, was Hitler a good leader? And his student said yes. And I don't know about you, but that even made me kind of go, what? Hitler was a good leader? Well, if you think about, not necessarily that he led for very bad reasons, but he was able to organize a whole group of people to have the same vision, to follow him, to have the same outcome, right or not. And that's a little scary to think about. That they may not have been ethical, but we probably could all come up with leaders, even in today's world, that have people following them that maybe we don't agree with. I think about that church that boycotts a whole lot of things that can be very controversial, yet that leader has people follow them. I think about the, now I'm dating myself, but the cult in Waco, Texas,
Isn't that the Jim Jones? Is that the Jim Jones?
Something like that, where basically he had these people commit suicide. But he was a leader that was very effective, just in a very negative way. So, that's kind of scary to think about. But if you think about even those negative leaders, they were effective leaders with a very negative path. But he also talked about how followership is important, equal to important. About how we tend to focus on the extraordinary and that ordinary is just fine. He actually said, be ordinary, but come up with ways to have extraordinary results. And then I'm sure everybody loved his quote at the end. To know why to do something is wisdom. To know how to do it is skill. To know when to do it is judgment. To strive to do it best is dedication. To do it for the benefit of others is service. To want to help others is compassion. To do this quietly is humility. To get the job done is achievement. To empower others to do all of these things is leadership. You remember that quote? I mean, that sums up. And to me, that's being a servant leader. It's, especially about to want to help others is compassion. To do this quietly is humility. To get the job done is achievement. But to encourage or empower others to do it is leadership. And so I really loved his quote there at the end. What thoughts, questions about leadership and self-reflection? Everybody's just quiet.
I felt like the Strength Finder inventory was pretty right on.
Mm-hmm.
That I said, oh my goodness, yes. That's kind of, I may have ranked things slightly different in the top 5, but I felt like that was very accurate as to my personal and professional, how I handle things.
Yeah.
And I was reading, I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
I think it's amazing when you answer questions that it kind of hits you dead on. There's a color personality test that I have given every staff that I've worked with. And what it does is, and I will share it with you all. I'm going to write myself a note. It's really fun to give. It basically, you rank, when you look at I'll share the whole document with you, but just look at the assessment. And with the assessment, there are 4 answers. You've got to rank all 4 of them, from like the most like me to the least like me, and then it'll tell you how to add up your score. And it'll give you one of 4 colors: blue, green, gold, and orange.
I took that assessment.
Did you take that, Ashley? I am gold, like beyond gold. Like I was separate from all of the other colors by like 10 points. There are some people that are like 1 point of, gold. The next one was like blue. I am like so above gold. But we now joke and talk about it to remember I'm blue. So please talk to me like I'm blue. And the rest of the document, and it comes out to be like 20 some pages, so be careful, but it talks about what are the characteristics of somebody who is blue? How does a person who's gold need to interact with somebody who's blue? It really does kind of sum it up pretty easily. We have one teacher who he pushes all boundaries. And I looked at him and I said, I bet your color was green, wasn't it? No, orange. He was like, oh yeah. I said, I bet your second color was green. He was like, yep. It's like, got it. There you go. So it was something very easy, but both of the staffs in the two different buildings that I've worked with have really enjoyed it and really enjoyed. At my previous school, we were a smaller staff. We had on our ID badges like a little dot that had what our color was, so that we would know, oh, I'm dealing with somebody who is going to push all boundaries, and so I need to interact with them differently. So yeah, the Strength Finder assessment, we're going to talk very specifically about that the next time, but it is a very interesting assessment. And one of the things that I am compiling is where each of you rank, so we can see if there are people who are similar. I have yet to have a class where anybody is the same 5 as anybody else. So we will see how you guys are. I've been focusing on the tasks, not focusing on the Strength Finder. But I mean, I took it and I go back and look at it and think, I wonder if I took this again, if I would answer it differently. But I really don't think I would. If anybody's done the Myers-Briggs, well, once again, it's questions, and all of a sudden it just nails you dead on. So yes, and this semester is really about you and your strengths and how that relates to being an administrator and to being a leader. We're going to talk about building a team around you at the next time. And then we're going to just talk about practical application. That obviously, being a practicing administrator, that's something that I'm pretty passionate about. Is you guys have just had 3 semesters of theory. So what does it mean in the real world? So that will be what we kind of talk about towards the end of our 10 weeks. Okay. Any questions? Anybody go anywhere fun so far? Going anywhere fun as soon as everything's done?
Over.
No? I just went to the beach for the weekend. I've got a nice little sunburn. Yeah, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, make sure that in all of this that you renew yourself. That's also equally as important. Make sure that if you have kids, make sure you spend time with your kids. If you have a spouse, make sure you spend time with your spouse. If you're like me and you just want to spend time by yourself on your couch with good HGTV, then do that. Make sure that you fill yourself up, because you guys are at the end. We just have to do the last little bit, okay? Let me know if you have any questions, any ways that I can help. I responded to emails today, and I am grading tonight. All right, any other questions for the good of the cause? I know somebody asked in an email, and forgive me for not remembering, but that's okay, whether add-ons have like a banquet at the end, something like that. So in the past, the university has not done anything with the add-ons. You guys had to apply for graduation so that they could process your licensure and your official transcript. Dr. Lamb has talked about doing something or allowing you all to participate in graduation and getting like a certificate of completion or something. I have not heard the final decision on that. I know that he has been working with the registrar's office on what can be done for those of you that are the add-ons. Now, that doesn't stop you from having your own get-together, even though you guys are pretty spread apart. But if things change or if I hear of anything, I will definitely let you know. We're not going to have a faculty Zoom until after the 4th. So if I know that has been the conversation over the last couple of online sessions for us. So if I find anything out, I will definitely let you know, okay? All right, don't hesitate to let me know if you need anything. Keep working, get your stuff in, and I will look at it.
Sounds good.
All right.
Alrighty.
If you need anything, let me know.
Thank you.